So we're on this kind of journey now, heading towards Christmas Day, if we're following through in December, but also following through the book, chapter 21, book of Philippians, New Testament reflections. We've been in Galatians, we've been in Titus, now Philippians, with this idea of God humbled. It's not an idea that easily comes to mind. We don't tend to think of God as being humbled, do we? It seems kind of removed from the normal way of thinking about him, but actually this is a very biblical concept. For example, Psalm 113, right in the middle of the psalm, it says this: "The Lord is exalted above all the nations, his glory above the heavens. Who is like the Lord our God, the one enthroned on high, who stoops down to look on the heavens and the earth?" Who stoops down. The word that's translated stoops down in this version of the Bible, and it's always stoops down or looks down, it seems, apart from the New American Standard, which I think really does get to the real heart of the word there, because the word that's translated here as stoops down in every other place, every other occasion in the Old Testament, is always humbles himself. It always humbles himself. So the God who is enthroned on high, who is elevated and exalted, his glory above the heavens, he humbles himself for the sake of the lowly. In fact, if we were to read on into the next verses 7, 8, 9, there's language used there from Hannah's prayer in 1 Samuel chapter 2, all of which is kind of feeding into Mary's song. And so Luke chapter 1, where Mary gives her Magnificat, as it's known, that's using language that could be from Psalm 113. And so a little Christmas connection. But that idea of a God who is humble is an idea, of course, that we do also find in the New Testament, in Philippians, the famous hymn of chapter 2. The first half speaking of the descent, before the second half, the kind of ascent, if you like, of Christ. So verses 6, 7, 8, Jesus, who, existing in the form of God, did not consider equality with God as something to be exploited. Instead, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a servant, taking on the likeness of humanity. And when he had come as a man, he humbled himself. There's that idea. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. So in the book, it says, in these verses, we watch the epic journey of the incarnation and the passion of Christ. He was not just born, he already was, fully God, equally God, there. But he did not cling on to those rights and privileges. Instead, he became a man. In the terms of the hymn, and in contrast to what was always true before, this was the equivalent of making himself nothing. The incarnation is about the Son of God choosing to become nothing. This could have been a compelling title for the book. Pleased to become as nothing as you. And so Jesus became a man and humbled himself, but that's not where it stops, is it? It goes on, and he was obedient even to the point of death, even death on a cross. Ultimate humiliation. But you might say, well, that's Jesus. Jesus is the Son of God. You know, we can get quite close to heresy quite quickly when we start saying things like that, somehow distinguishing him from divinity, if you like. But actually, if you read in the book, or you keep reading in Philippians, verses, 9, 10, and 11, really underline the fact that Jesus is God. Jesus has the name above every name. Everyone, every knee will bow, and so on. And so it's the reality of Philippians 2 that God, in the person of Jesus, was humbled. And so there's the humbling of the incarnation that is, if you like, a stepping stone to the ultimate humiliation of the cross. See you next time as we look at another New Testament reflection. Remember, if you're following along in the book, that's great. If you haven't got the book, it should be available. But hope that this is helping as we prepare our hearts for Christmas again.